Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Everyone's an Educator, our series that's discussing the socio-emotional development of our children. Today, we're going to talk about nurturing their well-being by preventing burnout. Now, burnout might happen, so we are also going to talk about how to manage burnout and what it is. So tonight's talk is all about helping our kids through a very stressful end of the first semester. So we've got mid-semester finals coming up, testing, and all of the other academic rigors they're going through are ramping up, and we want to definitely learn how to balance that. So, if this is your first time joining us, welcome. We are here at Denny's in Webster live. If you come down and join us in person, we do have light bites and would love to meet you and your kids. Kids eat free on Saturdays, and so we're going to feed your kids for you. So it takes a village, and the whole village is invited. So come on down to Denny's in Webster or join us online. Just make sure you register so I can get you that information so you can join online. So my name is Monique Carlisle. I am a mother of 5. 3 of my children are adults now, and I have 2 still in school. And that has taught me a lot of lessons about expectations and personal resilience and ability to move through all the rigors and all the expectations and learn how to balance all of that. And yeah, we reached burnout a couple of times. So we're going to talk about that. I've been an educator for 20 years and now help teachers and parents help their kids in all sorts of ways to grow our kids in awesome ways so they become awesome adults. So, MC Squared was founded with that in mind. We are coming to parents specifically, but also all educators, because you're going to have to deal with some of these burnout symptoms. Yes. So we're going to talk about burnout and how educators can help their kids in the classroom as well, because you're going to see some of those symptoms as well. So let's get started. So why do we need to teach about burnout? Well, because burnout happens. And it can be managed, and it can be prevented. So we're going to focus on the prevention part, but of course, we're going to talk about that at the end because most of our kids don't have these skills, and so we're going to have to teach them. So we're going to talk about how to manage it when it does happen. So the impact of burnout. Why do we care if our kids burn out? Well, when you reach burnout, as an adult, you've probably experienced this. There is a decline in academic performance, mental health, and resilience. Sometimes when you reach burnout, you just want to give up. There's no point to finish the project. There's no point to continue going to practice. You're just done. You don't have that motivation and determination to just keep going. So we want to prevent that so that we can maintain our academic routine and grades, and we can maintain our mental health and take care of that. And of course, maintain our resilience. Now, the definition of burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive or prolonged stress. In a nutshell, burnout is too much, too fast. Now, listen to that definition. Too much, too fast. That doesn't mean it's too hard. Doesn't mean it's too challenging or that it's an impossible task that's caused burnout. It means you're doing too much and trying to accomplish those tasks too quickly. Now, for example, I was working the other day on a very simple remote task. Download some data, work it in a very specific, repeatable way, and then upload the data. I had to do this 12 times for 12 different reports. Pretty simple and straightforward. Took me about 7 minutes per report. Seems simple, right? But I pushed myself to get it done as quickly as possible. It was a routine, systematic process. And when I pushed myself to accomplish them in 5 minutes or 6 minutes, I got through about 7 of them and then started feeling exhausted, just mentally done with the task. That's a sign of burnout. So I had to slow myself down and say, it's okay to take the full 7 to 9 minutes to process each report properly and give my brain time to reset between each system, each set of processes. So burnout is not about the task being too hard or too challenging. It's actually about the quantity trying to be accomplished in a short amount of time. Too much, too fast. So where does it come from? It is a combination of all of the stressors and expectations that we put on ourselves as adults and that we accidentally put on our kids. Those expectations and stressors can come from academics, their extracurricular commitments, their social engagements, your family dynamics, and their physical health. I'm sure you notice that if you are not feeling well, even if it's a minor cold or an ear infection, or your kids have a minor ear infection, it reduces their ability to manage the stressors in their life. When you're not feeling well and you're not at optimal mental or physical health, you burn out more quickly. So you have to manage that. You have to recognize the symptoms and the signs so that you can take the steps to take care of yourself. So how do we recognize burnout? Well, there are physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, social symptoms, and of course academic ones. So we're talking about each of those individually. Something really important to notice is your burnout symptoms and signs can be isolated. It can be a bunch of physical symptoms, but no emotional or academic, signs. Or it could be a combination from a bunch of different ones. So you have to learn your kids. We'll talk about that, being observant and using good communication, open, clear communication with your kids and with yourself. Check in with yourself. We'll talk a little bit about adult burnout too, just to say, am I doing too much, too fast? And then how can I manage that and slow down before I burn out? So let's talk about some physical symptoms first. Sudden illness or hurting. This can be something as little as a headache or a stomach ache, growing pains as they're called, can be too much too fast. Say they've joined a track team and their knees are always hurting. They might be doing too much track too fast and they could be burning out on that. Having low energy, becoming lethargic, or feeling tired and just not having a lot of energy for their regular activities. We're not talking about after a football game and they've pushed to the max and they've given it their all, they've left it all on the field and they're exhausted. We're not talking about that. We're talking about regular, typical activities, going to school, coming home at 3, and they just are wiped. That could be a sign of burnout. Please notice I said could be. Not everything is a sign of burnout. It's a combination of these factors and symptoms. Changes in sleep patterns. Suddenly they're awake all night. They have insomnia, or they sleep all day. They're sleeping in and they're missing the bus, or they're coming home and sleeping immediately. Those are some symptoms you could be looking for. Difficulty concentrating. It's taking them longer to do their homework, taking them longer to do tasks like the chores or things like that, and that could also be a sign. And then of course changes in appetite. Suddenly they're eating a lot more or they're eating a lot less. Maybe they start craving a specific type of food. They start requesting pasta and carbs, or they become sugar crazed and they want to eat a lot of sweets and cupcakes and cookies and ice cream and things like that. All of a sudden the M&Ms are gone out of the pantry. Those could be things to look for. Or not eating. They're just not hungry. So keep those in mind. Emotionally, this is probably one of the most common set of symptoms to see in someone experiencing burnout. They're just irritable. They're annoyed. They're short-tempered. Their fuse is short. Every little thing seems to tick them off. They withdraw. They lose their enthusiasm and they don't want to play that game again. They don't want to go and visit friends. They don't want to be a part. They're withdrawing. That's them trying to find a little bit of peace mentally so that they can avoid burnout. It's kind of like a subconscious reaction. They might actually say, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. I feel like a failure. They might express overwhelm and concern about how much is on their plate. That's a big one. And it's really important if your kids are saying this, that you're listening and then you come at them with strategies to help mitigate those feelings and help them kind of dissipate. And we are going to talk about that in a little bit. We talk about worry and anxiety. Perfectionism. Perfectionism stems from fear. Fear of not being good enough. I have to get this right. I have to get an A. When they become very obsessed with perfectionism, that is a form of worry, anxiety, or fear, and that might be a sign of them being overwhelmed. And regression. Regression is when a child falls back to an earlier state of socio or emotional or physical development. We typically see regression in toddlers and early elementary, say 5, 6 years old. They might start co-sleeping. So maybe they've been in their own bed for years upon years, but suddenly they want to sleep with mom and dad. And they can't sleep unless they're being held or they've got that comfort. That's regression. Potty training. If you have a 4 or 5-year-old that suddenly starts wetting the bed, that's regression. We don't typically see that in the late elementary and adolescence, but you might. For example, if you had a child who sucked their thumb or chewed on their shirt or had other stimulation for themselves when they were little, and all of a sudden at 9, 10, 11 years old, they start doing that again, that is also regression. So those are some things to look for to satisfy their emotional needs that we want to help them manage through. Socially isolated. So that goes with the withdrawal that we discussed. They just start wanting to be in their room all the time. They might be doing it in a really healthy way. They just want to read, or they want to write or draw, or whatever they want to do, but they want to do it by themselves. They're going to play their video games by themselves. No one's invited. That's isolation. Now, if your kid is typically isolated, what we're looking for, say they're a single child, they're their only child, so they're used to playing alone and things like that. What isolation would look like in that situation is not wanting to enjoy family dinners, not wanting to do a family movie. Say you're having a family game night and they're like, I don't really feel like it, and they disappear to their room. So that's kind of what isolation looks like. They reduce their social calendar. This is typically seen in the late elementary adolescence phase, where they just stop hanging out with friends. They don't want to go to birthday parties or football games or anything like that. They might drop from clubs, and they were really excited about the chess club, and all of a sudden they just don't feel like going anymore. That is withdrawal from social events. They might avoid social events. So withdrawing, saying I don't want to go, is a little different than avoiding. Avoiding comes with excuses. I don't feel like it. I have too much homework. I'm tired. Those kinds of avoidance behaviors. I forgot. Those kinds of things is avoiding. They're similar. And then, of course, the negative self-talk. I just can't do this. I'm so stupid. This is too hard. I'll never get this. That is expressions of overwhelm as well. And academically, typically you'll see a decline in performance. Depending on your student, you may or may not actually see a decline in academic performance. They might be maintaining their grades just fine. So you're looking for other signs and symptoms. Procrastination or avoidance of their homework. I see this a lot with some of my children and my students when I was in the classroom. They just kept forgetting to do their homework. They probably had too much on their plate. That's what I've noticed. And then lack of initiative or motivation. They don't want to try new things. They don't want to be part of new things. They don't want to start that project. So we want to help them with things like time management and balancing the project with their other needs, including their mental health needs, to make sure that they are managing their time and their expectations and projects properly. And then, of course, you've got the disengaged and negative attitude towards academics. I don't know why I'm learning math. This is such a stupid book. That kind of expression means they're not engaged. They're trying to withdraw. So you're watching for those kinds of conversations. Now, students can have an opinion. They could definitely say, I don't understand why I'm doing this math. I'm never going to use it. You want to approach that in a different way. It might not be a sign of burnout, but it could be if it's followed with that negative attitude of throwing my hands up, I don't care, I don't want to do this, avoidance, pushing away, versus a genuine question of genuine curiosity. Why am I learning this? Why Why is this so important? So you have to know your kid, you have to know kind of how they express themselves, to kind of determine, where is that criticism of their academic assignments coming from? Is it burnout? Could be. Could be just them vocalizing their own opinion and perspective. So now that we understand kind of what burnout could look like, again, could be a combination of many of those factors. So you're paying attention to your student holistically and not picking on one symptom or sign and calling it burnout. We're talking about a combination of things. So what do you do when you notice when burnout is happening? You need there to be an immediate intervention. And your immediate intervention has the goal of stopping the negative effects. We want to stop the mental health decline. We want to stop the academic decline. We want to stop those negative self-talk and all that verbiage. So that immediate intervention just halts the situation. Then we rest and restore. Now there's no time frame on rest and restore. Some kids just need 10 seconds to breathe. Some need 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Others might need an entire evening, just a few hours. And adults need vacations, right? So sometimes we need to check out for multiple days to reset and restore all the way back to balance. So it looks different for everybody, but step 2 is rest and restore. And then you can return to productivity. Now it's important to notice that I said productivity. When you reach burnout, you become unproductive or less productive. I know when I myself reach burnout, because it happens, I become unproductive. I have trouble processing what I need to do next. Everything just becomes too much. My to-do list is too long, and I have to just check out. And we'll talk about those strategies in a minute. But returning to productivity is your ultimate goal. So it's going to look a little different for each age group when you are managing burnout. Burnout looks the same for all people, all kids, all ages, and adults. It is always going to be some combination of those symptoms that we just talked about. How you handle it when it's happening, that will change by grade level, by age, and developmental level. So now we're going to talk about each stage of life from our preschoolers all the way through our adolescents on how to help them handle burnout. So first we're going to talk about our preschoolers. Make sure we're on the page. Perfect. So preschoolers, this is your little ones. They can experience burnout. You've seen it. You've seen it in your own kids, and you've seen it at the grocery store. These are called temper tantrums. This is simply a sign of them being overwhelmed. They're burnt out. They're tired. They're cranky. It's too loud. It's too noisy. It's too bright. It's too much, too fast. So for these little ones, you want to stop and remove all the stimulation. If you're at the grocery store and your child is having a meltdown, it's going to be kind of difficult to remove the stimulation. So maybe you just find a corner in the grocery store and you hold them. Put them against your chest, cover their ears, cover their eyes. Just let them listen and feel you breathing, and breathe with them. Try to remove as much stimulation as you can. If you're at an event and you can step out of the room, a lot of people think that when you remove a fussy child from an auditorium, you're doing it for the benefit of everybody else. And yes, it does benefit them, but it really benefits the child more because you're removing the stimulation. Whether it's a choir event for a sibling or a movie that just got too loud, you're removing the stimulation. Then you're to comfort them. Like I said, you can hold them tight. Children, especially at this age, still love to be swaddled. Now, you're not going to wrap a 5-year-old in a blanket, but that tight bear hug resets the nervous system. So you want to make sure you're giving that nice pressure that's comforting to them. And then another thing you can do is allow autonomous play. So basically, after you've comforted them, after they're settled, you let them go play by themselves. Maybe they draw and just scribble and color in a coloring book, or they build blocks, or they go play with their dolls, whatever it looks like, but they do it by themselves in a way that they determine. This is important because when you're allowing autonomous play, they're not meeting anybody's expectations. They're going to start when they want and stop when they want. So that allows them that freedom to just regulate themselves to reset back to productivity. Early elementary. So these are your 6 to 8 years old, first, second, third grade. In addition to all of the preschool tactics that you can definitely incorporate to this age group, if it's appropriate and necessary, you can also incorporate art and creativity. If they love to draw, let them go free draw. Do a little bit of autonomous play. Let them be creative and work with Play-Doh or blocks, just expressing themselves in whatever way feels comfortable to them. Allow them physical activity. This can be something as simple as doing a couple of jumping jacks in the front room. Do it with them, have fun. Or going on a walk, or just standing out, walking outside and doing some jump ropes, going on a jog or a bike ride. That is so resetting for some kids to go in and just go for a bike ride. Just go ride the bike around the block a couple of times. Of course, keep safety in mind. But I remember as a kid, I loved it. It was a way to get away. It was a form of autonomous play. And then, of course, rest and removal of stressors. Maybe they just go lay down and read a book or take a nap. But you want to remove as many of those stressors as you can, whatever they may be. The sound, the noise, the homework. If your student is getting overwhelmed with a math problem, hey, buddy, let's take a breath. Let's just put this away for 20 minutes and take away the stressor, take away the thing that's bothering them the most. Siblings are included. Just the other day, I had all my children over for dinner. My adult children came in their own cars, so they had 2 cars going home. All throughout the evening, one of my adult children and my youngest were really just kind of clashing, and we managed it through the evening, but I made an executive decision that they were not going to ride in the same car going home. And my children questioned, and I had to explain, because they're clashing, and I'm going to remove the stressors to the best of my ability. So they drove home in separate cars and got away from each other. That is really, really important. Even in your own home, you can say, hey guys, you're not going to talk to each other right now. How about we just do separate things? And remove siblings that are clashing from each other. We're not talking about playful, sibling teasing and poking fun and, the good kind of interaction. We're talking about the annoying bickering and everything I say makes you get uptight and irritable, right? So stressors, not the good things, the stressors causing the burnout. So late elementary, very similar. Allow them to do that art and creativity, but also you can have them journal. At this stage, they're very comfortable with writing. They've been writing for a few years. It shouldn't be much of a challenge. If it is, we can talk about that later. But allow them to have a diary or a journal to just write out their frustrations. Set up some boundaries on that. Whether you choose to read it or not, they should know that you might read it if that's a philosophy in your family. Or if it's completely private and they have a lock to it and that nobody's going to read it, make sure they know that it's special and sacred to them. To allow them to write out what's going on. This can also look like a letter. If their sibling is driving them crazy, have them write a letter. It's really annoying when you do this and this and this. That's a great way to journal. They don't have to give the letter to the sibling. It just is an expression of what's going on with them to help them reset. Doing social activities, letting them just go hang with friends, go to the skating rink, go to a sleepover, go to the park with some friends, and just get out of whatever the situation is and do something else that's fun and relaxing. This is, of course, most helpful if academics is the stressor. If social events is the stressor, they're doing too many social events too fast, then of course more social events doesn't make sense. This was most appropriate for when academics is the overwhelming thing and they need to put that away so they can go have fun with a friend. And then of course rest and removal of stressors as we identified for the younger kids. For our adolescents, again, we talk about 12 to 18, but some of our kids need our support and help well past 18. But for our purposes, we're going to end our age group at 18. The first thing we need to teach them is mindfulness. I had to have this conversation with my daughter. She was expressing all of the different things she wanted to be part of. The clubs and the volunteer opportunities and the tryout for the play, and she had choir rehearsals. She also had her chores at home, and there was just this litany of expectations on her plate. So I had to talk to her about being mindful of what those expectations are and how much time and energy it was taking and what was going to benefit her energy and what was just going to draw from it, and to make good decisions about which birthday party was she going to go to and which social event with her friends does she want to attend. If she had to pick and choose, how do you do that? And of course that's going to be different for each family, personal philosophies, but that's what I had to talk to her about. Another big part of mindfulness is noticing when you are experiencing burnout, noticing the negative self-talk, noticing the anxiety and the heart racing and the difficulty focusing on your task list. Being mindful of that so that you can then incorporate strategies. Again, strategies are coming up in just a minute. Teaching your kids to communicate their emotions is really important. You can introduce emotional language to your preschoolers. They can't express it outwardly yet. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that at the preschool age, you're just providing the vocabulary. Oh, you look very angry. Oh, you seem very worried. That worries me too. Kind of just giving them those words. That's exciting. Those emotional words to help them communicate it. At the adolescent stage, we want to hear from them. We want to hear them say, I'm really nervous about the theater tryout tomorrow. I'm really concerned that my friend doesn't like me because I'm going to miss her birthday party. Those kinds of emotional conversations are so important so they can then move through those pieces and not get burned out by holding it all in their head and in their heart. And then, of course, teaching them to seek support. When they are overwhelmed, there's a lot that we can often take off their plates if they just tell us. For example, I have multiple drivers in the family, so if we have multiple places to go, I can help with that when they tell me I need to be here and I don't know how I'm going to get to all these places. I want to go to this event, and then I can call on resources and support to help with that. Or say they've had a busy week, they've got practice, plus a game, plus their clubs, plus their volunteer opportunities, plus they go to work. It's a lot. So maybe that week, because it's overwhelming, they pass a chore to a sibling, and we talk about supporting each other, and they don't do the dishes Wednesday night like they usually do because they need to take that time to rest and reset. Having that open communication and creating that support network within your family is critical to managing burnout. So now that we've talked about managing burnout at each of the ages, let's shift and prevent it. Now, we've already said that it happens, so we want to make sure we incorporate the strategies to manage it when it happens, but we want to minimize the number of times it happens. We want to minimize our kids going through burnout through proper prevention. So let's talk about prevention at each of the age levels. So in general, the best way to prevent burnout is to provide appropriate socio-emotional environments for each age level. Our preschoolers really need a lot of unstructured play. So that's just what it sounds like. It's play without rules, expectations, demands, do it my way or this way. Unstructured play is where they get to be autonomous and move through the motions of whatever it is they're doing. This also includes any music lessons. A lot of parents put their kids into early piano, early karate, early martial arts and things like that, and that's fine. We want to make sure that our little ones under the age of 5 are doing so and are learning through a play curriculum, not a, we have a recital coming up and you have to get this right. There's a big difference. Our early elementary kids learn through play. So similar, but now we're adding that expectation. We're adding a little bit of rules and a way to do it this way, but it's still fun. It's still light. There's still very little stress on performance. They can just enjoy the activity as it is. At the late elementary stage, we're teaching them structured study habits, time management, how to be self-aware and choose what to do at different times. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. My son Michael had that situation just a few weeks ago where I had to teach him how to structure his study time. And then of course our adolescents are starting to add a lot, especially high schoolers. They want to join the clubs and the volunteer opportunities and all of the different things that are offered, which is great. But now they need to balance everything they want to do with their own personal self-care needs. Make sure they're taking those breaks. So we're pushing them towards that independence and making sure they have the tools and strategies to balance it properly. So let's talk about our preschoolers. Again, this is preventing burnout. Unstructured play, we already mentioned that. Making sure that they're allowed to build blocks and towers as high and as wide and as crazy as they want. Without a demand that it be 4 or 5 blocks high, or it needs to stay within, this little space. You can define a space that's appropriate, but we don't want to be upset with them when they start pushing those boundaries, as long as they're not creating an unsafe situation. We talked about providing emotional words, allowing those simple routines. So what do we do to get ready for bed? They're starting that expectations, but make it playful, make it fun, keep it light and unstructured. And then safe space. Make sure they have a safe space. This was really interesting and hilarious. I went to a networking event the other day, and one of the business women, her daughter was sick, 2 years old, so she couldn't take her to daycare, but she was presenting, so she had to come. And it was a very small group, but it was really heartwarming because this little 2-year-old kept climbing under this woman's skirt and coming around, and then she'd go draw, and then she'd come and hang on mom's leg. She wasn't loud or annoying or anything. She was just practicing her safe space. She was in a room full of strangers, so to prevent her overwhelm, the child clung to mom. That's appropriate. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this age group finding that safe space. Maybe that's a favorite blanket or a favorite Snuggie. If you're going to the grocery store and it's stimulating to your little one, but they have a favorite stuffed animal, bring the stuffed animal. Help create that safe space so they can prevent their own overwhelm. So early elementary, creating that balanced schedule. So if you are enrolling them in martial arts and choir and piano and whatever else, soccer, things like that, make sure that it's structured. We don't want to have our kids practicing their soccer 5 days in a row, plus they have academics, plus they want to go to their friend's birthday party, plus they have chores. It's a lot. So make sure that when you're choosing the programs that you enroll your kids in, extracurricular schedules, that it's balanced with family time, social time, downtime, rest time. Make sure you're creating those balanced schedules. Teaching a growth mindset as well. This is where they can start feeling a lot of pressure to perform, to do better, to get straight A's in school. You did great, you did better, let's acknowledge that. My sister was a great example of this a few weeks ago. Her daughter is about 6 years old and she's learning to jump rope. And with the greatest enthusiasm I think I've ever heard from a parent. It was phenomenal. She goes, yeah, she's learning the jump rope. She can do it 5 times. And that little girl just beamed. She was just so proud she could do 5, and then she said, I actually can do 7. That's a growth mindset. There was no, oh, she needs to get to 10, or, she's only got to 5. There was this sense of pride in both mom and daughter that she had grown, that she had reached a milestone. It was amazing. She got even better in the last week. That's growth mindset, that there's constant improvement, and we're not comparing ourselves to others. Quiet academic times is really important as well. Making sure that if it's academic time, homework time, set aside that quiet space, have the whole house kind of shut down if you can. Maybe everybody reads, or you take your little ones out on a walk to the local park, those kinds of things, so that your older ones can actually do their homework in a nice quiet space, because they've got the academics coming in and stressing them out. Good stress. They don't need the sound, the noise, the chaos of the background also coming in for them to deal with. That creates overwhelm. And then, of course, we talked about learning through play. Whatever they're learning to do, it should be playful, it should be fun. For the late elementary, we're going to continue with time management skills. And this happened just a few months ago. I had a whole wonderful weekend planned. We were going to go to the museum, we were going to go to the park, we were going to go camping that night. I mean, it was just, we had a huge, wonderful day and a half planned. And when I picked up my son, he said, Mom, we can't go to the museum tomorrow. And I was taken back. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I have like 6 hours of work to do. I can't go. We just can't go. It's like, well, let's talk about this. And we had to have the conversation of time management. There was no getting around that he had 6 hours. He didn't do what he was supposed to do during the week. He did have a lot of homework to do. It didn't actually take 6 hours. But we had to say, okay, how much time is each section, each assignment going to take? Let's write this down. Now let's find time in our event schedule for you to do this. So we plugged in 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there. And when we had solid blocks, we talked about not doing 3 hours in a row. That's not appropriate. We're going to do an hour, and then you're going to take a break. You have to take a break. So I'm teaching my 12-year-old time management and appropriate expectations for himself when he does have a lot of work to do. Of course, you've got social connections, as I had mentioned earlier, encouraging playful times with their social circle. Going to the skating rink, going to the park, going on bike rides, inviting your friends over just to play a video game or watch a movie together, laugh and have fun. There's a lot of things you can do to encourage those social connections that helps them kind of disconnect from the family stresses, the academic stresses, and go enjoy just being who they are with the people who appreciate them, their friends. Now again, as mentioned, if socially they're getting stressed out, of course you don't want to add more social events to their calendar. So of course take that and balance that with their schedule. Expressing emotions, we've mentioned that. The more they're able to articulate what they're feeling, what they're going through, what they're thinking, the better we can respond. And it does actually help lower the stress level when you're heard. That's why we feel so good when we go have a ladies' night and we're just kind of talking about life's stresses. And not that we need a solution. We're not necessarily seeking a solution, but we're seeking empathy and compassion. And just receiving that helps us feel a little stronger, a little more assured with what's going on, a little calmer about all the things we got going on, right? And then, of course, we mentioned monitor extracurriculars. You're going to just keep making sure that they're not overdoing the soccer practice. Even if soccer is only scheduled for 3 days a week, if they're going outside 4 days a week, the other 4 that they're not actually practicing and spending 2 hours practicing their soccer or basketball or piano or whatever it is, that might be a little much. So you're monitoring that, helping them balance practice and passion for their activity and self-care. And then we have our adolescents. So adolescents have a lot more on their plate. So we're going to make sure that these are realistic expectations. You can't be everywhere and do everything for everybody. You can't be at every friend's social engagement, birthday party, whatever's going on. There's got to be some realistic expectations. You can't do 6 hours of homework in one night. So you have to balance that and break it up through the week. Encouraging healthy decision making. I had this conversation with my daughter where, again, she was saying that she was overwhelmed with, wanting to go to this friend's party and then this friend's party and then this friend, having all of these things to do. And we had to have a discussion about what serves you. What do you want to do? And how do you want to manage that? And so we had to talk about how to make those healthy decisions for herself. What is she going to give up so that she can go? We had the conversation about if you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So you just need to decide what you're comfortable saying no to, whether that's time with the family or time for homework or a little bit of sleep. So you have to decide, what are you saying no to? And are you okay with that? Of course, healthy coping strategies like mindfulness and communication, and check in often. At this age, adolescents are starting to naturally withdraw from the family. They become more social. Peers become more important. They want to go and receive validation and time with their peers. That's appropriate. We also want to check in. How was your night with your friend? How was the basketball game? How is theater practice going? Ask them, check in often, and then stop talking. That's key. For this age group, just ask the question and then let it kind of just sit there. Be okay with the awkward silence, even if they say just, oh, it's fine. Oh, tell me more. And then just stop. They will fill it in. As soon as they feel safe, they'll let you hear all the great things going on, and you might hear a few things that they might need support with. So to recap, all the general strategies that work for all age grade levels is having that open communication, using that proper emotional language, asking lots of questions, using a flexible environment so they can escape and go be by themselves for a minute so they can reset, using lots of observation. Pay attention to what your kids are going through. Watch and see, are they still eating enough food? Are they still going to bed? It's okay to take the cell phones away when they go to bed. We want to make sure they're getting their rest and just having those conversations. And then, of course, reassurance. Everything from growth mindset to we're going to get through this, to breathe, all of that reassurance that you are there to support them as they move through all of the expectations that they have. So remember, burnout is recognizable, it is manageable, and it is preventable. So be proactive. Because a healthy, balanced student becomes a healthy, balanced adult. We look forward to seeing you here in Denny's at Webster next week. We appreciate you joining us online and can't wait to meet you in person next time.
What are the topics?
Next week, I need to look it up. Let's see. Next week, we are going to be talking about I'm pulling up the event calendar. By the way, you can find all of this information, the complete event calendar, on mc2potential.com. And if you have any questions or want to reach me directly to talk about any of this in more depth, maybe grab a group of your parents and I can come and talk to you specifically about toddlers or early elementary and how to navigate those different grade levels in depth. Please do drop me an email at mc2potential@gmail.com. I cannot pull it up. I'm having some trouble with my internet.
Okay. See if I can find it on your Facebook.
Everything is listed on Eventbrite as well. So we'd love to have you register and join us. There we go. Okay, next week is when they just won't listen. So we're going to talk about your kids being defiant. When they just won't listen, they won't follow their normal expectations, and they're having that insubordination and defiance. We're going to learn how to manage that and avoid it too. So join us next week for when they just won't listen. How to handle your students and your children being defiant and a little frustrating. I do hope to see you guys next week. Join us online or in person. Y'all take care.
Thank you so much. Awesome.